Ryan Blackwell had it all: wealth, fame, and a name that echoed through every corner of the tech world. His penthouse in New York City stood as a monument to success, towering glass windows, marble floors, and a skyline view that would leave anyone breathless. But behind the pristine walls was a chaos no amount of money could fix. It wasn't the empire that drained Ryan. It was what waited at home: his 4-year-old twins, Max and Lily. Ever since their mother passed away in a tragic accident, the laughter in the house had died. The once playful children had become forces of destruction. Nannies came and went, each one promising they could handle it. But none lasted more than a week. One fled mid-shift, another left crying. The children didn't just misbehave, they challenged authority. Every rule was broken, every attempt at discipline turned into war. Max would throw tantrums so loud the neighbors called to complain. Lily refused to eat, speak, or sleep through the night. Together, they formed a storm of grief and confusion no professional could navigate. And Ryan? He tried. Between board meetings and investor calls, he showed up, tired, broken, lost. But he didn't know how to be a mother and a father. He didn't know how to grieve with them. So instead, he poured himself into work, hoping a perfect nanny would magically fix what felt so irreparably broken. Still, the job remained highly sought after. After all, who wouldn't want to work for one of the richest men in the country? The pay was unmatched, the perks endless. But nothing could compensate for the emotional war inside that penthouse. It was cold, not just in design, but in spirit. No toys scattered on the floor, no giggles bouncing off the walls. Just a sleek, lonely space where two kids cried for someone who wasn't coming back. Every time a new nanny walked in, they brought credentials, references, and confidence. Every time they left defeated. It wasn't the children's fault. It was their grief. And grief doesn't respond to resumes. It responds to love. And so the door stayed revolving, until one ordinary woman with no agency backing showed up, and brought something no one else did: a heart ready to stay. The next morning, as the elevator doors opened onto the top floor, the usual silence was broken only by the distant thud of something breaking, again. Ryan stood at the entrance of his penthouse, weary-eyed, preparing to interview yet another candidate. But this one was different. Grace didn't walk in with a briefcase or a polished pitch. She wore a simple cardigan, sensible shoes, and carried nothing but a small cloth bag. Her face was soft with time and kindness, her eyes gentle yet steady. She didn't try to impress. She didn't even flinch when Max screamed from the other room or when Lily threw a stuffed animal across the marble floor in protest of her arrival. Ryan raised an eyebrow. "No agency sent you?" "No, sir," Grace said with a small smile. "I saw the flyer while visiting my niece." He nodded, skeptical. "You're not exactly what we expected." Grace chuckled softly. "I get that a lot." When he asked about her experience, she didn't list degrees or prestigious jobs. She simply said, "I've taught children for over 25 years. But more importantly, I know how to care. Really care." Ryan leaned back, arms crossed. Something about her calm unnerved him. Most applicants tried to convince him they could fix the chaos. Grace didn't promise anything. She just stood there, kind and still, like she had nothing to prove. He was ready to send her away, but then, just for a second, Lily peeked out from behind a chair. Grace caught her eye and smiled. Lily didn't scream. She didn't run. She just looked back. Ryan noticed. And it stopped him. 3 days, he said, reluctantly. "You'll last 3, if that." Grace gave a gentle nod. "That's all I need to begin." She didn't walk in like a savior. She walked in like a friend. And that made all the difference. By the end of her first day, Grace had already begun rearranging more than just the furniture. She was reshaping the energy in the home. Gone were the stiff routines and strict boundaries. In their place, she hung fairy lights in the twins' bedroom, built a blanket fort in the corner, and laid out soft pillows like an invitation to dream. She didn't walk around with a whistle or a clipboard. She sat on the floor, cross-legged, letting the children lead. She read them stories, not just fairy tales, but ones about children feeling sad, angry, or lost. She asked them questions. She let them talk. And when they didn't, she simply stayed. Instead of punishing Lily for hiding her food, Grace sat beside her in silence until Lily reached for her hand. Instead of scolding Max for throwing toys, she knelt down and gently asked, "What are you trying to tell me?" There was no magic phrase, no miracle solution. What Grace offered was rare and quiet presence. When Max refused to sleep, she laid beside his bed, telling stories until his breath slowed. When Lily woke up crying, she was already there, whispering, "You're safe now." One night, after hours of laughter from their fort-building adventures, the house finally quieted. Grace wandered into the hallway and noticed Max missing. She found him curled up under the dining table, silent, clinging to a toy dinosaur. She crouched down slowly and waited. Then came the softest voice. "Are you leaving too?" The words shattered her heart. She crawled under the table and gently wrapped her arms around him. "Not until you want me to," she whispered. Max didn't say a word, but he rested his head on her shoulder. In that moment, something shifted. A wall cracked. And the boy who hadn't let anyone in since his mother died, finally did. Grace didn't try to fix them. She simply saw them. Heard them. Held space for their pain without trying to push it away. And for the first time in a long time, the twins felt like home wasn't broken anymore. It was just healing. The sun had long set, casting a soft amber glow across the penthouse as a gentle tune played from the speakers. In the living room, Grace twirled with Lily in her arms while Max giggled uncontrollably, clinging to her skirt. Pillows were scattered everywhere, and the scent of freshly baked cookies lingered in the air. For the first time in what felt like forever, the space didn't feel cold. It felt alive. Ryan stood at the edge of the hallway, watching in silence. He hadn't intended to stop, just passing through between endless emails and calls. But the sound of laughter, real, innocent, healing laughter, froze him in place. It was a sound he hadn't heard since before the accident. Since before their world had collapsed. Grace didn't notice him standing there. She was too busy being in the moment, spinning, singing, and letting the children be children. And they? They clung to her not out of fear or need, but trust. Deep, soul-level trust. Ryan felt something shift inside him. His throat tightened. His eyes burned. He turned quickly, retreating to his study. As soon as the door shut behind him, he collapsed into the chair and buried his face in his hands. He cried. Not like the silent, forced tears he shed at the funeral. These were the tears of a father who had tried to be strong for too long. Tears of guilt, grief, and helplessness he had buried beneath board meetings and business trips. But most of all, tears of relief. Someone had finally seen his children for who they were, not obstacles or burdens, but broken little hearts trying to find light again. Grace didn't treat their grief like a problem to solve. She honored it. Sat with it. And slowly, melted it. It was never about hiring the best nanny. It was about finding someone who could love without conditions. Someone who didn't see the cracks as weakness, but as a place where light could enter. In that moment, Ryan realized something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in 2 years. Hope. The park was quiet, bathed in soft golden light as autumn leaves danced in the breeze. Max and Lily ran ahead, their laughter ringing through the air as they chased each other between trees. Their cheeks were flushed, eyes bright, not with mischief this time, but with joy. Real, lasting joy. Grace walked beside Ryan on the path, her pace steady, hands folded behind her back. She wasn't holding the children's hands anymore, they didn't need that kind of guidance now. They were free, confident, and happy. And Ryan? He looked different too. Softer. Lighter. The weight he'd carried for years had finally begun to lift. It had been months since Grace first stepped into their lives, but no one ever asked her to stay. She just never left. Because she knew, some families aren't built by blood or contract. They're built by love, by time, by choosing each other over and over again. Grace didn't clock out at 5 p.m. She showed up for bedtime stories, for scraped knees, for quiet tears on hard days. She was there when Max read his first sentence and when Lily finally whispered, "I miss Mommy," without breaking down. She was there when Ryan apologized for not knowing how to grieve with them, and when he asked if maybe they could be a family. Grace didn't just heal two small hearts. She reached the one that had been locked away the longest. She reminded Ryan how to laugh, how to play, how to feel again. Now, watching the twins run freely beneath the open sky, Ryan turned to her and said quietly, "I don't know what we would have done without you." Grace smiled, eyes twinkling. "You never had to do it alone." Sometimes, the people who change your life don't come in fancy packages. They don't carry credentials or trophies. They carry patience, compassion, and the courage to stay, even when it's hard. Grace came into their world without expectation, just love. And that love? It didn't just mend a home. It built a new one.